Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm ready to get started with today's podcast. And those of you that are joining me, let me just appreciate you. Those of you that are joining us live, we will be rebroadcasting this on all of your podcast platforms. Apple Podcasts and Spotify are the main two. But I think we show up on other podcast platforms as well. So look for us. You're driving in the car, or you just want to listen to our discussion today on relationships. Just go to your favorite podcast platform and search on the Relationship Boot Camp podcast with Pastor Will. Will only has one L. The Relationship Boot Camp podcast with Pastor Will. Do me a favor as we get started. I want to hear from you. So today we have another provocative topic that we're going to be dealing with. And I'm probably going to do one more for this year, take a little break, and then come back strong in 2025. So this might be this one, or next week may be our last podcast for this season and for this year. And then we'll kick back off next year. I pray that all is going well. Y'all, I done made my own made my own caramel latte. And let me tell y'all, I did it too. I don't know if you could see my caramel on the top. I got my espresso and cream on the milk on the top. Let me stir it up. This will save me like $1,200. So I got me one of those espresso machines so I can do my own lattes. My caramel latte special. Yeah, it's not bad, y'all. It's not bad. But thank you all for joining in, and y'all comment. Let me know that you're on. Let me verify. I think it looks like we have all of our platforms running live this afternoon. I'm going to double check, but I certainly appreciate those of you all that are joining me on Facebook. Hit those shares and likes. Listen, this is only about a 45 to 50-minute podcast. So if you have something to share, I do try to make it interactive. We are on Facebook and YouTube, and I'm also trying Instagram. So we hope that this is of use to you. And today is a little personal podcast. And I think a lot of people misunderstood the premise of today's podcast because the purpose of the podcast is to expand a discussion, a question that was asked to me personally, but I wanted to kind of broaden it, and I think some people got the wrong take on it just looking at some of the comments. And let me share that with you all as we get started. Again, I do see Cassandra on. Cassandra, I know I haven't heard from you, but I'm glad that you're on. But if you all have any questions, please put them in the chat. And Cassandra, if you can text them to me if I see them, because I may miss them in the chat. When I get to talking, it's hard for me to keep up, but I do appreciate her doing that for me when she's on. But everybody, thank you all for joining in. Hit those shares, hit those likes, tag somebody, tell them they want to be a part of today's discussion. And I'm gonna share with you all where I felt like some of the confusion came from with today's discussion. So I kind of open up by saying, who comes first, or which one comes first, the pastor or the husband? And I specifically said the pastor or the husband. Now that was a specific question to me, and I'm going to show you where the basis of that came from here in just a minute. But some people took it as I was asking them who come first, their husband or their pastor. Now that was the wrong premise. I'm not asking a question about whether or not your personal pastor should take priority over the man that you've committed till death do us part, or the woman, if you're a male, that you committed. So that was the wrong premise. But based upon some of the comments, some people thought that. People were like, duh, of course it's my husband. That wasn't what I was asking. So let me read these 3 questions that I intend to try to address today in our podcast, and then you will kind of get an understanding of where I was coming from. But before I do that, let me see, which one should I go for? Should I go with some of the comments that you all gave me? Let me preface this, and then I'll come back to these. So this question was asked of me. These questions, it says, Pastor, did you feed the first lady, referring to my former wife, more than you fed your wife? So I'm thinking they're talking about my role as a pastor versus my role as a husband. They said, do you think that you were more engaged at the pastoral level versus the husband level? Number 2, do you believe your devoted wife, again, my former wife, left well before the dedicated, committed, and devoted first lady? So you see that distinction there? Husband, pastor, first lady, wife. And then the last question was, in intimacy, did you ever cater to one role more than the other? And how do you know the difference? So I'm going to try to address each one of those. So I was kind of putting it out there because I wanted you all to kind of give me some feedback from your perspective. And if you have some different perspectives, feel free to post them in the chat. But let me just read a few that I did get, and some of them were totally and completely off base. But let me just share what some of the folks said on Facebook. I have a few on Instagram as well. Good comments, but some of them were kind of off the mark. So let me just read a few of them. So Dwayne said, the preacher is there to serve, not to be served. It is not even a discussion. He is not your spiritual man. Husband is your leader. So I guess Dwayne was going by the premise that I was asking about a husband versus your spiritual pastor. And then Deborah says, not all husbands spiritual or saved. Look in the Bible with husband and wife. Not all husbands are spiritual. Okay. Not quite clear. And then, so they're going back and forth. They come back. For believers, the pastor is never over husband. That's not even a discussion, saved or not, unless the husband leaves you or perhaps you left in danger, then that's abandoned or even adultery. But the topic is about leadership in the home. And again, the pastor is never over the husband. And no, this discussion is not about leadership in the home. So I want to be real clear. That is not the premise of what I was trying to say here today. Here Sandra said, husband, according to the word of God. Wives, see you reverence your husbands. And yeah, of course, I do believe that. Now, again, this is another person talking about ranking in terms of authority. Who comes first? Here's Nikki said, my husband, of course. Some of y'all really love your husbands. Because I got a lot that said, my husband. The question is, who comes first, the preacher or the husband? The answer, to answer the question, the husband comes first, understanding that God comes before all. But to answer the question that was asked, husbands. Remember, God established marriage before he established the church. Everything that y'all saying, I agree with. That's just wasn't, but you're giving me the wrong answer to the question that I asked. I agree with this, that marriage, that God instituted marriage before he instituted any of these other institutions. And then they go on to give us Ephesians 5 and 25 through 34. Husbands, love your wives as Christ has loved the church. And but I'm going to get back to that. Marquita says, God first, marriage and ministry. And then she got a few comments. Sandra says, God will direct your steps. I like that, Sandra. The question was, who comes first, pastor or husband? Looks like Bobby finally got it. Y'all stop trying to be deep. It's common sense. God comes first. Darlene says, my husband will always come before my pastor. Thank you, Darlene. Just not my question. Juanita, put God first, then put husband second. Husband comes before anything. All right, let me stop there because see, obviously I touched this subject and there's a whole lot of more comments and some more on Instagram. But let me get back to what the premise of it. It was a personal question to me, and I was asking the same thing of you. You have multiple roles. So I have a role as a pastor, but I also have a role as a husband. And so the premise of the questions really dealt with which one of those guys were ministering when it comes to the marriage first, or more importantly. Is that making sense to somebody? Somebody give me some feedback and let me know I'm making sense. So I'm going to ask these questions one more time so that you all can understand. I'm going to answer each one directly. The premise is me being a pastor and me being a husband. The questions were kind of asking me, which one was I putting first as it relates to my wife, and which one was she putting first as it relates to her husband? So the question number one, did you feed the first lady more than you fed the wife? Do y'all get that? Do you believe your devoted wife left well before your devoted first lady? Okay. And then number three, did you ever cater to one role more than the other? How did you know the difference? So that was the premise of my questioning you all, was if you have a spiritual role and a natural role, which one comes first as it relates to the person that you've committed to? I wrote something down and I thought this was kind of neat. Let me see if I can find it. I put this reminder, say this, Will, during your podcast. And let me see if I can find it here. My mind ain't as good as it used to be, so I have to write everything down. Do your spiritual calling come first, or do your emotional and physical calling come first as it relates to your mate? So I have a mate. I am my mate's husband, but I'm also my mate's pastor. And so I have a spiritual calling to God, which ministers, but then I have an emotional and a physical calling to my wife. And so that's an interesting conversation and question. And so somebody say, what's a first lady? A first lady, since you're going to ask the question, I think you know the answer. But the first lady is a real term that we use in Christendom in the church. And her role is to have a special leadership role amongst all the women in the church because she's married to the pastor. It is a time-honored role. It is traditional. It is accepted. And so when we use that term first lady, we're talking about the spiritual side of the church, which a lot of churches, unless the pastor is single, has a pastor's wife, which we call first lady. And so the question was, were you all more in the pastoral first lady role than you were in the husband and wife role? And it's an interesting question that I can answer from my perspective, but only my former wife can answer it from her perspective. And she probably would disagree with me. There's no question in it. She ain't here, so clearly she disagreed with me. So the first thing that, and we used to have debates and discussions and challenges with this issue. I never thought it would come to her leaving and us ending up divorced. I hate to use that term because I don't believe in it, but I guess if you see it, I don't know, you can say you don't believe in it or you won't, but if it happens, it happens. So I laugh because it's better to laugh than to cry. So y'all just work with Pastor Will today. So now, I never made a distinction, me personally, between my role as a pastor and my role as a husband, because I think that you get the whole package. You know, I'm a man, but I'm a black man. I'm a man, but I'm a father. I'm a man, but I'm a husband. I'm a man, but I'm a pastor. I'm a man, but I'm a brother. I'm a man, but I'm a uncle. So all of that is who I am. And to answer that first question, which I will, and I'm going to go back to it again. Did you feed First Lady more than you fed your wife? I don't think so. They just ate at different times. Okay, that was good. I think both of them was eating. They just ate at different times. Clearly, now we may disagree with, now where the disagreement may have come in with was who gets to eat more, who gets to eat first, and how do you make that determination? How do you make that determination? Because it's not a 50-50 rule. You don't live your life based upon balance. Well, you got to have balance. No, there's no such thing. Life is not balanced. Life is not fair. You can't live your life on balance. Well, I'm going to get at church its time. I'm giving my wife her time. I'm going to do this. Well, if the church is about to fall apart, you can't say, well, I'm sorry, church, I got to go do wifey stuff. Or I'm sorry, wifey, I got to go do church stuff because your time is up. Imagine, if you will, all of my parents, that you didn't balance out your life. You're going to give church 4 hours a week. You're going to give your job 40 hours a week. You're going to give your husband 10 hours a week. You're going to give your children 10 hours a week. You got that whole thing balanced out. Are you with me so far? Now, by Thursday afternoon, you've given your children their 10 hours. It's balanced. So they get no more time because you didn't give them their 10 hours. Then on Friday, you get a call from the school saying your child has fallen and broken their leg. You don't get to say, well, I'm sorry, I've already balanced their time. They've had their 10 hours. They're going to have to wait till next week when the clock starts over. No, you do what you have to do when you have to do it. And sometimes it'll be giving the children more time, but sometimes it may mean giving your job more time. Now, finding out when you have to do that where you have to come to an agreement. When we started Victorious Praise, me and my wife sat down and we had a conversation because me and my pastor told me some of the challenges that I would have. And one of the conversations I have was, at the beginning of this, I'm going to be working like a runaway slave. Because we're trying to build something. I literally started the church in my living room with 2 meetings. And then we went to a clubhouse for 1 month before they kicked us out. Then we went to a storefront, a police substation with prostitutes and drug addicts around. Then we went to a schoolhouse. They kicked us out. They went to another schoolhouse. They kicked us out of there. Then we went to a office complex. And all of this happened within the first 5 years of our ministry. Then we purchased land and we built a facility. Now, let me be real clear. You can't do that saying, well, the church only gets 10 hours a week because I got to give my wife 10 hours a week, because I got to give my children 10 hours a week, because I got to give my job 40 hours a week. You got to put the time in where the time is. And so in order to get to where I wanted, and we had that conversation, and I had the conversation with my wife. I said, we won't be able to do a whole lot right now, but we're going to build it and it's going to grow. And everything that I said came to pass. And sometimes I do be thinking I'm prophetic, because some of the things that I shared actually came to pass. I said the ministry's going to grow, and then we're going to get employees, we're going to have members, volunteers, and we'll be able to take more and more time. So those first 4 or 5 years, we worked, but she was right there with me. So we was working together, but it was a lot of pastor, first lady role, a lot of it. But everything that I declared, I said what's going to happen. As the ministry grows and as we get older, we'll be able to spend more time. By the time, now we're in our 20th year, 15th, 16th, 17th year, everything that I said happened. The ministry grew from our living room to building a $2 million edifice. It went from 10 members to over 1,000 members. It went from no employees to 30 or 40 employees to 80 or 90 volunteers and leaders. And so guess what happened? We began to be able to do more stuff on the husband and wifey thing. We were taking 4 vacations a year. We were, every time we did ministry stuff on conferences, I would always squeeze a little mini vacation in it. So if a conference for the national conference was Tuesday through Friday, we would take off on Monday, maybe not come back till Saturday, squeeze a little extra time in there. If I had to go preach for my parents, I preached for them on Friday. We would fly into Chicago on Tuesday. They wouldn't even know we was in town, just hanging out, just walking the strip. So I know I ministered to my wife. It's just that depending on the season and the time, one got more versus the other. And I told somebody this: don't blame it on God. Don't blame it on pastor. Don't blame it on God first or any of that stuff. That was just my job. And you know what? That was my job when I worked at IBM. I put more time into IBM. You know why? Because I wanted to get ahead at IBM. And so I was a workaholic at IBM, just like I became a workaholic at Jesus I am. Okay, stop, Pastor Bill. But as I grew and we got more time, then we gave each other more time. That's just the way it worked. Can you imagine if Michael Jordan or LeBron James or who are some of the other stars? Whatever the basketball stars there, their wife said, you spend too much time on that basketball court. You need to not go to the games this week and come spend time with me. But his job is to play basketball. Okay, now what are you supposed to do? He's supposed to call the coach and say, I can't come in tonight because my wife needs me to be at home because she wants to have a date night. Y'all don't like me. But that's no different than being a pastor. It's just a job. Now, I know it's spiritual. I know there's a calling there, but it is a job in which you have to put time in. And the more time you put, the more reward you will get. Behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to pay every man according to what his works shall be. I'm going to take a break because I just saw something pop up. What if you are married before you get the call and your spouse doesn't support what you do? You don't support you. What do you do then? And that is a big challenge. And that's one of the worst one of the worst situations you can be in, is to have a spiritual calling and your mate does not support it. Now, the beauty of my relationship is for the first 30 years, my wife was ride or die. I promise you, she was my best supporter. She was my best amen corner. When I preach, she was the first one to stand up and say, preach, ninja, preach. When God gave me a call, she was the first one lining up what we going to do next. I'm telling you right now that she was my best member for about 30 years. And then the last 4 years, something shifted, something changed. And when I say 30 years, well, we were married for 34 years. So 30 years, she was my best supporter. 20 years was pastoring. This will be my 27th year. So I would say about 23 years. I mean, just there. I mean, whatever I needed, she was first there. She literally was the first lady, the first member, the first praise and worship, the first lift, stand up, the first shout and act like you enjoy me a preacher. She was the first mother, gave me 2 beautiful children. When we became a superintendent, the first district first lady. She worked with all the first ladies. I mean, just there. And then she wasn't. But so I don't think that I neglected my role as a husband. It's just that we ate at different times. Earlier in this process, I was out in hustle mode, which all young people should be in hustle mode. If you ain't hustling, you ain't getting it. If you go on the job at 9 o'clock and coming home at 4 o'clock every day, you probably not getting ahead. If you started a church and the only time you go to church is on Sunday to preach, your ministry is probably not growing. But that's true in your corporate world. If that's what you do on your job, then you just collecting a paycheck, and the first layoffs, they're going to lay you off. The first set of layoffs, because that's the way this thing works. Am I helping anybody here? So that, hopefully that answered that question. Pastor, you will never be able to explain why someone else made a decision. God bless you for trying. Thank you for saying that. And I'm not trying to explain. I'm trying to give you my perspective. I'm trying to give you my perspective since the question was asked. Now, let me try to help you with that second question. But now let me go back to that calling question, though. Now, I want to be real clear. And I've answered this one before, but I want to go back to this. A lot of people said that, even though it wasn't an answer to my question, that the marriage comes first, that your mate comes first. And I somewhat slightly, I think, disagree with that, at least from this perspective. When the marital problems first started with me and my spouse, somebody told me to take a sabbatical, leave the church, and go take care of the marriage. I couldn't find that in scripture. I could not find that in the Bible. And I didn't hear that from any of my leaders at the time, which was my bishop and my pastor. But what I did find was that my first assignment was not my marriage. My first assignment was my calling. And then God sent a wife to be my helpmate. But the helpmate wasn't changing my first calling. My first calling was God calling me and then giving me a wife, or me finding a wife to be my helpmate. God said it's not good for man to be alone. Therefore, I will give him a helpmate. He gave him a helpmate. What is a helpmate? To help you with whatever you're called to do. Now, I'm not sexist. I believe that, and I try to do that with my mate as well, to be a helpmate, to help her with whatever assignment she was called. And I tried to do my best. And so I wonder, obviously, with her not being here, maybe I didn't do good enough, but nobody does good enough. Everybody simply does their best. All right, let me go to my second question here. Thank you. I hope I'm helping somebody. If not, at least I'm helping myself. Praise Jesus. Since y'all ask these questions, I like to expound and expose them. Do you believe your devoted wife left well before your devoted first lady? Some of this is private, and so I don't want to go too deep, but I will say this. I didn't know my wife was leaving. I know she was not happy. And I know that she started to back off of some of the first lady stuff, but at no point did I ever believe that she would actually leave me. I know y'all laughing when I say I'm a good guy. I really am a good guy. Somebody told me, Pastor, all men say they're good guys, and I get it. And I know that that's what we say, and that's what you all think. But I actually believe that I was a good husband. I believe that. I still believe that to this day. And if I remarry, I'm going to make somebody a good husband. Um, but they have to understand my calling is to be a pastor, and that's my assignment. Now, I absolutely believe that um, we should take care of each other, but depending on where you are in life, you do it differently. A couple that's just getting married, just getting started in life, they need to be in hustle mode. He need to be out there hustling. She need to be out there hustling. There even may be times where they might end up being ships passing in the night because one of them is working first shift, one of them working third shift. I did third shift for a while, whatever it is. But you're trying to grow and build something together. And so you may not be able to do quality balanced time. Quantity balanced time. So you have to do what I call quality balanced time, which is what I definitely attempted to do in our situation. And again, as far as I knew, for the first 30 years, I think we did a fairly good job. Now, let me go to this. Let me go to this. Number 2. Do you believe oh no, that was me answering that. I can't speak for another person. I can only speak for myself about did my wife leave before my first lady left. All I can say is I never saw it coming. Anybody ever been in that situation where I think it was a scripture in the Bible where a man was a prophet and the person didn't like their prophecy. And so the person, this is in the Bible, so the person slapped the prophet and asked him, did you see that coming? I ain't see that coming. I really didn't. Y'all don't understand. For years, God had given me marriage as a ministry. My wife and I wrote 5 books. Most of them were based upon sermons and series that I had preached. We put those together. We developed workbooks. We got known nationally, all over the country, ministering to other couples, ministering to pastors, setting up marriage ministries. I mean, this was something that was profound and powerful as far as I was concerned. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was my calling. So you can imagine my shock when my own wife, who was teaching this stuff with me, left. It hurt, it broke, and it even made me question myself. I said, Lord, now I believed in all this stuff you gave me. How can my marriage fail? I believed in all of this stuff. So obviously, only thing that I can say is that whether my wife believed in it or not, I certainly never knew she was going to leave. Are y'all with me? I knew we had some challenges the last couple of years, but everybody has challenges. That's why I wrote the books, because we had challenges. Literally, the second book, which I had the 10 Commandments of Conflict Resolution, I wrote that because we was having conflict. And I knew that it had to be resolved. You couldn't sweep it under the rug. And I helped a lot of couples get through the process. I just couldn't get through it myself. All right, final question. And then if you all have any questions for me, please put them in the chat. And Cassandra, please text them to me. I haven't seen any text come through, so I guess you all don't have any questions. So we're going to have a short discussion today because I'm on my 3rd question that was in this list here. All right, so here's the 3rd and final question that I was given that prompted this discussion. In intimacy, did you ever cater to one role more than the other? How did you know the difference? And so I think I've already answered that. The answer to that would be yes. And I think life requires you to be out of balance at times. Sometimes you got to spend more time with the children. Sometimes your job is in jeopardy. You got to spend more time with your job. Sometimes there's a deadline. You got to spend more time to meet that deadline. Am I helping anybody? Sometimes, there's things going on with your body. Sometimes there's things going on in your soul. You just don't feel like it. And I know the whole, not tonight, I got a headache, but sometimes you actually do have a headache. Sometimes you do have a deadline at the job, and the job is what keeps us in the house, which keeps food in the cabinets, which keeps the car payments paid, which keeps the kids in school. And so you can talk all you want. Well, you got to have balance. You better have a job. You better have a car. You better have a house. Can I preach to somebody? And if that means that I've got to do overtime to keep this job, guess what you're going to do? You're going to put more time in one versus the other. So yes, I knew at what times, because I stated it. We declared this in front. Did you ever cater to one role more than the other? The answer is yes. How did you know the difference? Because one I was doing for the Lord, and the other one I was doing for my spouse. And if God shows me something I can do different, or that I should have done different, or that I will do different, I always have a transparent openness with God. And one of the reasons why I believe we have a successful ministry is because I'm not doing what I did 27 years ago right now. The same people that were the way we did things and the 2000s is not the way we do them in the 2020s. So I've always been open to ideas. When we first started the church, we had one service. Now we did 2 services, and we went back and forth with that for a little while. And some of it was me listening to the congregation, and some of the leaders thought it was too much and all of that. And then I had to listen to God. So I'm a very open-minded person. So if there's something I can do better that I think is better, I would be a fool not to do something that's better. I'm not that guy. It's my way or the highway. No. I want to do it the right way, not my way, but the right way. So hopefully this helped somebody. I'm not going to be on too much longer, but if you all have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'm about off here. Hopefully this was useful. And so what questions do you all have for me today on the pastor versus the husband? It's not going to be a balance. It was never intended to be a balance. And you have to put in your time where your time requires you to put in your time. And anybody else? I don't see any additional questions. Cassandra, did we get any questions that I missed? I would love to spend a little time answering any questions, but I don't see. And I did see Makita on. She the one that asked me those questions, and she was okay with me saying it's okay. Did I answer your question sufficiently, Makita? Let me know. And anybody else. So I'll tell you those questions one more time, and so that you all can say yes, I answered them, or no, I didn't. Makita say I'm nosy. Listen, if I didn't want to share it, I wouldn't share it. But this is why I do this. I want marriages to work. I want relationships to work. If you all study my ministry, this is my passion. I hate that I can't do it the way I used to be able to do it when my wife was with me. If there's one regret, and there's a lot of them, that is one of them. The hurt that we cause to young couples and married couples, the hurt that we cause to the ministry that God gave us for marriage. And the people will say, well, what can he tell me about marriage? He ain't married. And I know that exists, and I can't do nothing about that. All I can do is just keep moving forward. I don't try to defend myself. I don't try to chase folk down who say negative things about me. I just keep living. I keep preaching. I keep doing what I'm doing. And when God gives me an idea, I present it. When my wife left, I was so fed up with marriage. And somebody came to me, one of the members said, Pastor, you can't stop doing marriage. So I sought God, and he gave me this thing called the Marriage Power Team. So I put together 5 power couples in our church, and I said, I need y'all to become me. God has given me this knowledge and information, and it is not based upon Will's ideas, but God's ideas. It's not based upon my theories, but God's word. And I need to make sure that my place does not encumber the word of God. So I need you all to become experts. So I took 5 couples and I trained each one of them, said, I need you to become the spiritual connection expert. I need you to become the physical conflict relation expert. I need you to become the soul tie, emotional tie relationship expert. I need you to become the love, agape, eros, and filial love expert. And I said, the last guy, I need you to become the sex expert. The intimacy and sex experts, and so that's what I did. That's the plan that God gave me. And you know what? At a national level, I got the couple. They're going to the women's convention to present this, and we'll probably have them helping me with some of the church growth stuff that I do. I bring them on from time to time to teach and preach on it, because I don't want to be a hindrance. You know, one of the things that really hurt me during this process, and a lot of things hurt me, was when it got back to me that there was some couples divorcing because they heard, and their explanation was, well, pastor got a divorce. That was so painful. Because I do this stuff for real. This is not a gimmick. I'm feeling a little emotional even right now. To know that somebody was hanging on because my former wife and I was a light. And then when our light went out, they said, what's the use of keeping ours on? And that crushed me. The first time I went in front of my church, I cried in front of them because I saw all of them looking up at me. And some people probably say, well, he ain't really mean that stuff anyway. Yes, I did. Yes, and I still do. But let me stop right there. Cassandra said she did get one question. Sorry, I missed the beginning. Did you and your wife go for marital counseling? 100%. I don't teach anything that I'm not willing to live myself. Like I said, we were married for 34 years. As far as I'm concerned, the first 30 were good years. I think we got through it. We had 2 beautiful children. We built a life together. We built a ministry together. We expanded. We grew. I felt like God was with us. And then something changed the last 4 years of our marriage. And there was a lot of unhappiness, and I couldn't figure out why, because we was doing the same thing we had always been doing. And I'm a creature of habit. If you want thing you're going to learn about Pastor Will, it's not that I won't change, but I develop a routine. I try to stick to that routine. You come to church on Sunday. Pastor going to preach. He's going to give you 3 points in the close. He going to talk about relationships. Somewhere in that message, he going to get into your business. You know why? Because Jesus only gave us 2 commandments. Love God, love your neighbor. Your neighbor is your friends. Your neighbor is your family. Your neighbor is your husband and your wife. And so we 100% went to it. Some counseling was good. Some counseling was horrible. Because you got to remember, we both had a doctorate in theology and marriage and family. We'd written 5 books on the topic. I knew what to do. We just couldn't get it done. You ever heard somebody say you can't see the forest for the trees? Or you ever heard somebody say a person who is their own lawyer has a fool for a client or something like that? I knew and I tried, but I couldn't get it to work for us. Even though I come down and say, okay, well, let's do this for conflict resolution. This is what we believe. I don't want to do it. Let's do this, let's do that, and so on and so forth. And so we did go. We went to marriage boot camps. I spent thousands of dollars on this. We went to counseling, and what can I say? So the answer to that question is yes, we did. And I would encourage anybody and everybody. I still counsel people now. The first year that my wife left, God sent 5 couples to me that year who were going through the same thing that we were going through. And I was able to help and save some of those marriages. And what hurt me was nobody could help me save mine. Yeah, that part right there. I'm going through the 5 books, and people's like, yeah, okay. I got to be spiritually connected. I got to get rid of my conflict and learn how to resolve it. Physically connected, emotionally connected with our mind, our will, and our emotions. Okay, soul ties. I got to be love connected, not just eros, sexual love, not just filial friendship love, but agape love. And then we've got to learn how to keep the flames going through intimacy, and intimacy leads to sex. But a lot of people are trying to have sex without intimacy. Preach right there, Pastor Will. And so we wrote all of this stuff. And so, but yeah, 100%. Okay, Rashida, don't be talking about grabs, Kleenex. I hope that this has helped a few of you all, and it's my reality, it's my truth, and I continue to just let God order my steps and direct my path. One of the reasons for this podcast is to do things like I did today. So when people ask the questions, I'm going to answer them unless I'm not going to answer them. Because I don't care about you being busy or being nosy. I think Makita said, I'm just being nosy. No, but I think the reason why we actually started doing marriage stuff is because pastors and first ladies weren't being transparent. People were looking at us and thinking we had these perfect marriages. And I, throughout my marriage, was transparent. The books that I wrote, when me and my wife would go on and do our webinars and our boot camps and our marriage enrichment sessions, or when we would do our retreats, we would talk about our own issues, because I felt like people were saying there must be something wrong with my marriage because my marriage is not like my pastor's marriage. And so I made a point in my books and in my teaching to say, no, there is nothing wrong with your marriage. The reason why I wrote these books is because we had these challenges, but we were able to get through them. We were able to learn the spiritual connection, to learn the physical connection, to learn the emotional connection, to learn the love connection, and to learn the sexual or intimacy connection. We were able to do those things. And I wanted young couples to understand, no, Pastor went through some stuff. And unfortunately, I'm having to give another lesson. That is when they leave. I hate it. I absolutely detest it. Please don't say, well, this is just another chapter God wants to take you through. No, this is just 2 niggas who couldn't get along. Did I just say that out loud? Y'all excuse me, they're gonna ban me. 2 ninjas who couldn't figure it out, who should have been able to figure it out. And I'm gonna play my part in that. We should have. We had all the information. We had the relationship with God, and we should not have done this. We should not have left, and that's my thing. Okay, I'll stop right there. All right. Thank you all for your feedback. Thank you for your comments. I'm assuming I didn't get any more questions. So thank you all. And I think I'll do one more session next week. I think then we'll shut it down, and I'll start a new session next year. And I don't know if y'all gonna like my next topic. It is something that I heard on another podcast, which I'm going to steal it and act like it's mine. And it was this podcast about, don't y'all judge me. It's a podcast that's out there now called Dear Future Wifey. And so I'm thinking about doing a series of discussions. I'm not saying it's going to be next, but I will do that next year on um, how do you choose your mate? How do you choose your next mate? What are you doing to prepare yourself for your future spousey, dear future spousey? How about that? I haven't heard the podcast. I just heard that topic, dear future wifey. I thought it was cute, so I may do something similar to that. And we're gonna get into how to date. I'm gonna get some feedback from y'all because I don't have a clue. I've been married since my 20s. We were married for 34 years and separated now for 5 years. So I don't know what I'm doing. I literally don't. I told somebody I went on vacation, and the only thing I knew to do on vacation was what I used to do with my former wife. I just did it by myself. So bless my heart. But I love you all. I thank God for you. Uh, um, so y'all just keep a brother in your prayers, and I'll do the same thing for you. We're probably gonna have some. We're gonna do a lot of stuff on marriage though, because that's still my passion. So I'm gonna bring some couples on. We're gonna talk about marriage, and I got some interviews and things that I want to do. So I may do one more segment this year, shut it down, and then come back next year. Hopefully, I'll be close to finishing my book, which is called "Rising Out of the Ashes." And listen, before y'all get off, I need everybody to take a minute and go to victoriouspraise.org/events and look up Triangle Give Back. I need to bless a lot of families. I've donated $5,000 towards this effort, and we're going to get some business partners to do that. And I'm going to need your help and your support as well. So if you will do me a favor and go to those of you that are listening, go to victoriouspraise.org and select Triangle Give Back. There's a QR code for those that are streaming right now, but you can go to victoriouspraise.org/events, click on Triangle Give Back, sponsor a family or nominate a family. Better yet, I'd like for you to do both. Who can we help? And can you help me help them? I would greatly appreciate that. Until then, don't just live life, live a victorious life, and have an amazing day. God bless you. I need your help, y'all. I need your help. Y'all have a good afternoon.